It is never a dull moment in Kenya, but lately the rest of Africa seems to be frowning upon the country that has for many years regarded itself the capital of Africa. A nation that prides itself to the slogan Hakuna Matata, which means a land of no trouble, is currently a topic of discussion across the continent and especially amongst Pan-Africanists. Why would African liberals turn against a country like Kenya? Who exactly is the cause of this chaos? What are the patriotic Kenyans saying about this situation? Episode 2 of Africa's 54, where you get to enjoy tales from every corner of our soil. 5th September 2022, the former British colony was eager to receive the Supreme Court's ruling on the 2022 election petition, which to many came as a surprise considering the confidence that the opposition wore throughout the hearing.
This also turned out to be no more than hot air, and we were taken on a wild goose chase that yielded nothing of probative value.
Dr. William Samoei Ruto's win in the presidential race on this fateful day was upheld. Mixed emotions ran throughout the country, but hustlers, as Ruto would call his diehard supporters, were elated. The time had come for the sons of peasants to feel represented. Time had come for the poor to form the government. This time, a young boy who dared to dream was motivated by the zeal that had propelled a former chicken seller to the most prestigious position in the country. The hope that came with President Ruto's election was felt across the borders, and the entire African continent was awakened by the excitement that dynasties had finally fallen in one of the most influential sections of Africa. Some of the impressive attributes that surrounded this mysterious politician is that he had managed to take all his studies in Kenya from primary to university. Years to his elections, he had also attained a PhD in botany, something that also excited the African intellects. Extensively, President Ruto has also had all his children study through the Kenyan education system, and it is clear that this was another moment that Africa was running in the arms of Thomas Sankara. Today, the winds blow, and as Kenyans continue to put up a spirited fight against the highly taxed systems by President Ruto's government, things are starting to take a different turn, and the once highly held Pan-Africanist is facing resistance from across the continent. Few months after taking power, the eloquent Kenyan president lit up the internet with his new acquired sense of fashion, bringing back the historical days of African liberators. Mr. Ruto took up Kenneth Kaunda's inspiration of donning Kaunda suits and would attend major African-related conferences in this specific attire. In a range of meetings, President Ruto constantly roared about the need for Africa's unity and our independence from Western aid. Standing ovations from every corner of Africa, the continent had finally gotten a new voice. Some of the unforgettable moments was when Mr. Ruto complained about the treatment of African heads of state in London during the inauguration of King Charles. In a dramatic performance, the Kenyan president lamented about how African presidents are bundled in buses like school kids whenever visiting Western countries, and he called for a united African front. Another remarkable incident was in July 2023 during an African Union summit, where the doctor in botany stepped up in his Kenneth Kaunda-inspired suit while carrying the voice of Gracia Machel, where he called out his colleague presidents for leaving gaps in the unification agenda for Africa. According to Mr. Ruto, Africa deserves a joint currency and a breakaway from the constant borrowing that the continent is involved in with the Western countries. The last of his voices were with the likes of Julius Kambarage Nyerere and his counterpart Kwame Nkrumah. However, the tides of luck and charisma seem to have tilted, and the mask of who the real William Ruto and his intentions has been peeled. Looking at numerous social media engagements, Ruto has been called out as an hoodwinking politician whose interests are controlled by the West and especially the United States of America. In what Pan-Africanists have called masquerading in the rightful beliefs of an independent Africa, Ruto is probably a man on a mission to sell out his fox for personal gain. But where did Dr. Ruto's wars begin? Here. On July 26, 2023, the country of Niger woke up to the news of change of guard in a bloodless coup that saw the president who had for a long time courted with the French government overthrown. The main message behind the coup was the liberation of the rich West Africa from the shackles of Western infiltration, which has for a long time caused extortion of minerals and natural resources. In response to the developments, President Ruto, one in the few presidents who aired their views through a presser, called out the army in Niger and stood up by the ousted president. Of course, to his handlers, this might have been a calculated PR to show solidarity for a democratic Africa. But to their surprise, this was a long-awaited trigger for many. The internet blew, and now the eloquent fellow from the Horn of Africa started raising eyebrows. As many would say, Ruto, who had been taking the right, started walking the left. Not so long after, Burkina Faso through its army did away with its French-imposed presidency, and while Burkinabe was celebrating the advancement, Dr. Ruto seemed to fidget, and onlookers started getting uneasy with the nature of the man who had for a few months earlier called for the ditching of the dollar for a single African currency.
Why are we bringing dollars in the middle of our trade? This is the question we should be asking ourselves.
To many, these were just mere political stunts for relevance, but hell broke loose on 20th September 2023 when Dr. Ruto attended the 77th United Nations General Assembly. The visit to the US set Ruto in a strain of controversy regarding his engagement. In what seemed like a total abandonment of God, President Ruto was all over the place, getting cozy with all the wrong people in the eyes of Africa. Ruto's sit-down with the Ukrainian president to discuss their potential partnership to enhance grain supply in East Africa was a baffling revelation to all Africans home and away. In a fueled online resistance, Ugandans and Tanzanians called out Mr. Ruto and requested him to speak only for Kenyans when engaging in partnership requests, as they described his actions to be treason to the Pan-Africanism belief. Combing through engagements from Kenyans, Ruto's idea was not welcome in his backyard as well. Most of the Kenyans were concerned about the need to be involved with Ukrainian issues and the cost of such partnerships. Interestingly, it did not stop at that. The man who is constantly preaching water and seemingly drinking the hardest wine declared in his speech that he would be deploying 1,000 Kenyan police to lead peace missions in Haiti. While this to some was a strategic diplomatic move, to many, this is a puppetry move, and President Ruto is being used by Americans to advance their interests. Haiti is a country where more than 200,000 people have been misplaced by gangs, and the country lacks a stable system of governance. The security in Haiti is so poor that a former president was gunned down by hitmen while at his presidential palace. Haiti sits in a territorial tussle because to this day it is still under America's federal administration, which is one of the main reasons that the region has never known peace. To Africans, it was shocking for Ruto to reveal his decision to deploy Kenyans to the gang-controlled Caribbean state. Following these events, today, Mr. Ruto is an isolated man who many think is not to be trusted. Even though some people feel that it's a free world and if his actions are beneficial to his countrymen, he should proceed with them, many Pan-Africanists feel betrayed and have been left to quote Samora Machel when he once said, "The day you hear the whites speak of me in good terms, don't share your secrets with me, because that means I would have betrayed you already." Now, in the silence of your African breath, do you think Dr. Ruto has betrayed Africa?